Welcome to the Inside Syracuse Basketball Podcast. I'm Mike Waters. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by now former Syracuse basketball player Joe Girard. I talked with Joe about the reasons behind his decision to transfer, why he picked Clemson, and his golf outings with the Syracuse coaches following his transfer. Well, welcome back to another edition of the Inside Syracuse Basketball Podcast, and today we have a return visit from one of our most prolific guests, I think, here, probably next to maybe Buddy Boeheim. And this is going to sound weird. It's former Syracuse basketball player, Joe Girard. Joe, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing? That was actually very weird to hear, but I'm good.
It probably is kind of weird. And I think we're going to talk about some of the weirdness.
All right.
That's probably lies ahead, right?
Yep,
I'm going to get into some of that. But the first thing I want to talk about is something we were just chatting just before we hit the record button here.
Mm-hmm.
I saw you this past Saturday, graduation weekend. The Syracuse University's Falk College held its commencement ceremony on Saturday night at what used to be known as Manley Fieldhouse.
Yeah.
And you were there. Can you tell me what that was like to walk across to get announced and receive your diploma?
Yeah, I mean, that was very important to me and my family. Basketball has always been my main focus, but, so school is something I've always known I've had to do. And, it's always been like a pretty big deal in my house. And, it wasn't necessarily, you got to be a straight A student. You just make sure that you get good grades, but make sure you're also just getting your degree in. That was kind of my main focus is, these past 4 years, I want to focus on basketball sports, but at the end of it, when I'm done here, I want to make sure that I'm also graduating and getting a degree from Syracuse because there is so many, connections and prominent figures that have been through Syracuse. And even with our keynote speaker being, David Falk at that Saturday graduation, just people like that who have come through the program and come through Syracuse as it's pretty cool. And, to be able to have a same degree that all of them do and from the same school, it was pretty neat and something I always wanted to do.
Yeah, that was something pretty interesting on Saturday when the keynote speaker is the guy whose name is on the building.
Yeah, that's true.
David Falk, super agent to Patrick Ewing and Michael Jordan.
Yep.
I know that probably perked up your ears.
Yeah, that was probably one of the more interesting things that I was watching. I watched the Last Dance documentary, so I had kind of known all about him a little bit, and a few other documentaries on Netflix I've seen with him in it. So that was cool for me, just for him to be there and be able to speak to us. But when I liked when he started talking about all that kind of stuff because I'd kind of seen it before in the documentaries.
Was there any moments either during a ceremony like that or maybe over the course of the past weekend or weeks where it kind of hit you that these were your last days at Syracuse University?
Honestly, no. When I was going through those events, it was all, good and, it didn't really feel like anything. And, it always kind of just felt like, I'm going home for summer break and going to be back here for the summer sessions when I got to be here. But, I think what really hit me was when the last day, when I, on Sunday, when I packed up the rest of the stuff from my room that I had left, threw it out and, had to leave my keys to my apartment there. That was when it really kind of was like, oh, geez, you're not coming back here. Your 4 years have gone by so fast. It's over here. But it was all fine and dandy until then. And, even on the ride home though, it just kind of felt like, that was the only real moment in my head where it kind of hit me that I wasn't coming back. But when I was driving home, it still felt like I was going home and I was going to be back at some point. And, it hasn't really hit me yet that it's not true.
Were you driving by yourself or with your family?
No, I was driving by myself. My family came up and back on Saturday for the fall graduation. And then I stayed over that last night, just throughout the last few things and then in the morning Sunday and then drove home.
That gives you a little time for a little contemplation, huh?
Yeah, a little bit, but I'm not as an emotional guy as, some may want me to be, including my family and girlfriend. But, I've loved Syracuse for 4 years and I have really I think that's why it's also not such a emotional thing for me because I have no bad blood for anything that's going down, and I loved every second of all of my 4 years. And I know that someday in the long future, after hopefully playing days are over and whatever I get into, that I'll still be going back to Syracuse and seeing it as my alma mater and all that kind of stuff. So it really doesn't hit me as like a emotional thing because it's not a bad thing, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I did a little poll of programs throughout the ACC and looking at fifth-year players, guys that had that extra year because of the COVID pandemic. You and Jesse are two of many.
Yeah.
It's a little more than 50% are leaving to go take that fifth year at a different school.
Yeah.
A few are staying.
Yep.
Armando Bacot, being, one of the most prominent, but a lot of other guys are moving on. And I was wondering about that process.
Yeah.
What were the main factors for you in deciding whether to, hey, you know what, maybe a fifth year at the same school would be okay, or no, I need to move on?
Yeah, I mean, I think our situation was different at Syracuse, obviously, with just how everything was going on and, Coach Boeheim stepping away and, all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of a little different situation than, maybe a lot of the other schools had, other than maybe Notre Dame, because Coach Bray did it as well. But I think that was kind of like, a big thing for us is, and, I love Coach Red. I literally was just golfing with him 2 days ago. So it's like, he's one of the guys that I'll talk to forever. Like I still golfed with all the coaches, even after I announced I was transferring, even after I announced I was committed to Clemson. So it's like, I love all those guys, and that, like, Coach Red being the coach wasn't the reason that I decided to leave. It was just like a whole bunch of factors that played into it. And, I came to play for Coach Boeheim. Like, I came to Syracuse because, I wanted to play for Coach Boeheim, a Hall of Fame coach. And, I loved everything about the school. It was my dream school. I grew up in New York, all that kind of stuff. And, when he kind of left, it was like an opportunity. It almost seemed like an opportunity for me to kind of explore other options. It wasn't like, oh, Boeheim's gone, I'm gone. It was more just, all right, why not see what the other options are? I want to keep all my options open, and that's what I kind of did. And then ultimately, when I kept all my options open and the portal happened and everything else happened, and I kind of saw all these different opportunities. I figured it was more of a chance to experience some life. Almost, I've been in New York for 22 years, my whole life, and why not go experience something different for a year? That ultimately also sets you up for life. You got to be able to widen your horizon and be able to live in different parts of the world, different parts of the country. So I feel like this is a good opportunity for me to not only get better as a basketball player and hopefully win a lot of games, but it'll also give me an opportunity to adapt somewhere and live somewhere else where I can't. Not that I came home ever, honestly, because I never did, but just having in the back of my mind that I can't drive 2 hours home. It's different. So I think all of it kind of played a factor into it when I decided that I wanted to leave somewhere and go somewhere else. And ultimately, Clemson was that choice, and I'm really excited about it and looking forward to it.
Of all those things you just talked about being factors that weighed into the decision to stay or go, one thing you did not just bring up was with a new coach, there might be a new style of defense. They might play more than a man. There might be a new offense. Maybe my role isn't the same. You didn't mention any of that.
No, I mean, I had multiple conversations with Coach Red, and all of the things he said were expected, and it was all kind of my decision. It was all similar. Obviously, I want to be able to go play man-to-man defense. I want to be able to show people that I can do it. I want to show myself that I can do it, and it's not like I've never done it before. I played on the EYBL for 3 or 4 years and had to play against the best players in the country in my class and the class above me and play man-to-man for those many years. So it's not like something I can't do. It's not something I don't want to do. I think that's the biggest thing is, I didn't like when I told you, I came to Syracuse to play for Coach Boeheim, the Hall of Famer. I came to Syracuse to play in the Dome. I came to Syracuse because it was my home state. All my family good friends could come. I didn't go to Syracuse to play a 2-3 zone. Like, that wasn't a factor that played into my decision. That was just obviously what they did. And I was going to do it. But I'm very open and willing to play man-to-man defense, and I'm really excited about going to do it at Clemson. So that wasn't like, again, another factor is that, oh, Red was going to tell me that we're playing man-to-man. Well, it was kind of like a no duh. It was kind of going to be changed. So I'm looking forward to it, and that wasn't like anything at all as to why I left.
You know, the transfer recruiting process is sort of like recruiting on steroids
Yeah.
or on fast forward mode. Take me through that process. Like, how quickly did you hear from how many schools once you put your name in the portal?
I think I put the thing on social media because I had, talked to our compliance at Syracuse like a day before or 2 days before, and kind of got the paperwork for it and talked to them about like what I needed to do it, and then kind of did that subtly so that nobody really, would ask me or bug me about it in those few days. And then, I announced it on social media, and I'm not kidding. I think maybe two minutes later, I started getting phone calls or texts and all that kind of stuff. So it happens fast. And, a lot of the funny thing about it, and it actually is true, is a lot of the coaches who had recruited me would kind of compare it to NBA free agency in the sense that it's a 1 year decision and it's a fast decision. You can't, you're not going to get recruited. You're not going to build relationships as much as you did in high school with these coaches, where they're recruiting you for 3 or 4 years. It's 3 or 4 weeks that you got to pretty much decide. And ultimately, you can drag it along, but someone's going to take your spot, and then you're going to be left with nothing, or you're going to be left with plan B and C when you could have went plan A. So it's a lot like free agency in the sense that you're trying to find a spot fast and you know what you're looking for. And I think that was the easier part about it for me is that, I didn't go into the transfer portal kind of questioning what I wanted to go into. I had been a 4 year starter, scored 1,600 points, whatever it may be, set all these records in the Syracuse record books. Like I kind of knew a situation I wanted to go to where I could, ask these coaches if I was asking them if my what I was looking for aligned with what they were looking for. And, obviously if they said no, then it's no hard feelings. It's just I only have 1 year left. I don't want to go somewhere and regress, if that makes sense. I want to go somewhere where I can still be Joe Girard and be on winning teams and then hopefully make a run in the NCAA tournament. So that was kind of easier for me is because, I have an idea of where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do in terms of role, style, fit, all that kind of stuff. And, so that was the easy part. It was just the hard part was trying to fit it all into that short amount of time because you do have 40 schools who are going to call you and text you. You can't take 40 visits in 40 days. So it's hard.
You boiled it down to just, as far as we know, two schools.
Yeah.
That's what we think. At least that's what I think, because I know those are the two schools you visited. I don't know if there were other schools that remained serious factors besides LSU and Clemson.
Yeah, no, there was a lot. I'd say the serious ones were all the ones that I had in home. And I might forget a few if I just try to name off the top of my head. But my plan and my parents' plan was, have those schools that are really interested in you come see if they come to the house and visit, because that's how they show, if they're really interested in you and will show what they want out of you and all that kind of stuff. So all the schools would call, the first thing, one of the things they say is, we want to get you on campus for a visit. And my parents work and, I want my parents to be a part of my decision. And, I don't want to go into somewhere where my parents might not trust the person or might not trust the situation. So first, I wanted the coach to come meet everybody. My girlfriend was there because she's going to be living with me wherever I was going and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted the coach to come to the house and, see the people he's meeting and do all that kind of stuff. So when the coaches would, call and say, can we get you on campus? And I would be, I would say, well, coach, obviously my parents got work and, right now they're kind of in hectic situations, but throughout the week, these coaches would come in home visits. And, that was a good opportunity for me and my family to really get to know the coach, get to know the program, and all that kind of stuff. And then from there was where, we tried to, that happened in like a 2 week span where I think like 10 or 11 schools came. And, that was kind of crazy.
They made visits to you.
Yeah. So like 11 or 12 schools came to Glens Falls and, had dinner with us, showed me a presentation, whatever it may be on their school and all that kind of stuff. And that happened, I was driving between Syracuse and Glens Falls up and back maybe 6 times because I was still going to classes and everything and trying to finish up before graduation. But so that was fun for me. I experienced that a little bit in high school, and that was kind of fun. But then it got to a point where it was kind of tiring or stressful again. So we kind of wanted to move on from that after the first 2 weeks of being in the portal or whatever. And I had, like I said, 11 or 12 schools who did come in house, and if you can't figure it out between those 12 schools, then you're kind of stuck. So I figured I might as well try and figure out some of these schools that I really liked when they came to the in-home and try and get some visits. And I set up the visit to LSU, and then tried setting up. Then I set up the visit to Clemson and was going to set up some more, but ultimately, just with everything going on, it just worked out better that I felt comfortable with both of those schools after visiting them and wanted to decide just between the two of them.
What did you like about Clemson? And did the fact that they're in the ACC, which means you'll stay in the same conference, did that help them in terms of familiarity?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it helped, and I had second guesses about it, throughout the process with them, and I asked some questions. I mean, I think when I said is, I experienced a lot of face guarding this year, and that was just because the way the season went and everything happened, and I kind of said, I don't know if I want to really go through it again, and kind of be on the same court with all these teams who have already figured me out for 4 years, and but knowing what I did, but I guess they could have kind of put it in a good way, and a good point is you don't think if you go to the SEC, Big 12, Big East, wherever it may be, that they're not going to know you there either. And, when they kind of put it that way, it actually made sense. And, I was like, all right, that's actually a good point. And ultimately, the pros outweighed the cons in terms of staying in the ACC. You get to, I'm familiar with all these other teams. I'm familiar with the play style of the whole league. I'm familiar with the arenas, all this stuff. So that was kind of a pro, all the pros. And like I said, there was really only that one con, I guess I would call it. But again, it kind of doesn't mean it's a con. It doesn't turn out to be a con in a way because, like I said, anywhere you go, they're kind of going to know who you are. And in terms of play style, it's going to be much similar that you've already kind of faced. So, I mean, I just kind of loved Clemson as a whole, and really the league thing didn't really play a factor into it. I was getting recruited, like I said, by Pac-12. I got recruited by pretty much all the leagues, and it wasn't like, all right, I'm going into this portal looking for another ACC school to play at, and it kind of just happened and fell that way, and it's going to be fun.
I don't know if you remember our conversation that we had a couple days before your senior day. And in one of my lighter questions to you, I asked you about your favorite logos to choose from.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Florida State.
Yep.
You also mentioned the Tiger Paw at Clemson.
Yeah.
So it's a big logo, which means
it's huge. Yep.
you can shoot from the logo legitimately.
Yeah, no, that'll be I had the logo Joe shirt, so maybe it'll be a little easier to make this time. The paw is so big. But yeah, no, Clemson's arena is actually, very nice after being able to tour it and everything. I mean, I loved it when we were there, just with all how, the orange and purple always stuck out to me and when we were there. And then the Tiger Paw was everywhere on campus. I think they do a good job of branding, obviously, but that was neat to me because, I like little things like that and, going and seeing things like that. Obviously with Syracuse and the Block S is a big thing, but the way that, Clemson branded the paw everywhere, I mean, it's on the roads, it's on every building, it's on the floors, and, just that big paw in the middle of the court is going to be a lot easier for me, I guess, to attack the goal of shooting from the logo.
One thing that's going to be tougher is your parents were
Yep.
at nearly every game, and of course, every home game.
Yeah.
And from Glens Falls to Syracuse, yeah, it's a little bit of a drive, but it's manageable.
Yep.
Clemson's going to be a challenge for mom and dad, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I kind of they were all right with it. We kind of all agree that I didn't care where I go. They'll try and figure out how to make some games and all that kind of stuff. So I love them coming every game, and they do the best they can to. I mean, they make 29 out of 30 or somewhere close to that each and every year. So they're big supporters. I think, obviously the easy plan would be to, come to every game on the weekends, and try and make some of the home games, whatever that may be. And, obviously travel to the away games like they usually do, whether no matter what day that is. So I think it'll be pretty close to how many games they make at Syracuse. It probably just won't be as many home games.
One away game from Clemson this year is at Syracuse.
Yep.
We don't know the dates yet. That'll come later in the summer.
Yep.
But have you thought about when you're going to have to come back and play Syracuse, and you'll go to the visiting locker room first? You'll stay in a hotel the night before,
Yeah, right.
And then you're going to have to come out of that tunnel.
No, I think I don't really care. I'm a competitor in terms of, when I get on the court. I think when I get on the court, I kind of just black out and play a game, but all the other factors are going to be the weird ones. I think I've been saying the weirdest one's going to be seeing my parents sitting in the away side. I don't really care about me so much in terms of, the locker room, the bench, the playing, and all that kind of stuff. But seeing my parents sitting on the away side of the dome is going to be like, wow. It's gonna be weird because I saw them sit in the same seat for 4 years across from our bench, and it's just gonna be different, not the same. So, other than that, I'm not. It's not, like I said, the Syracuse thing is not bad blood at all. So it's not like it's a game that I'm circling on my calendar to be like, all right, we're playing Syracuse, let's go. It's just another game for me. I love Syracuse, so I don't really have any bad things to say about it. So other than, going there and seeing my parents on the wrong side, I think everything else will be pretty normal for me.
You've mentioned so many times, no bad blood, all good feelings and stuff like that. And earlier you mentioned playing golf.
Yeah.
It's your decision. You've played golf with the SU coaches, including Adrian Autry.
Yes, sir.
I was wondering, how does that come about? I mean, I think a lot of people who don't understand relationships and how they're formed and the fact that you can actually make a decision to leave somewhere, but leave on good terms. I don't know if people are really going to be able to wrap their heads around that. So what's it like to go out and play golf with GMAC or Griff or Adrian?
Yeah, I've played with all of them in the past 2 weeks, and multiple times. So it's a lot of fun. I'm just out there. It's kind of more of a almost like a friendship. And we've kind of done that every summer since COVID, really. When I got addicted to golf, and so did those other guys. I mean, Jerry's played for a while, but Red and Griff kind of just started the past few years as well. And it was a good opportunity for me, these past few years to get out there with them and build more of a relationship than I already had, and almost see them more as a almost like a friend, and like obviously on the court it's a lot different, your relationship, but off the court when you're out there golfing with them and stuff, it's like a friendship. So those guys were great. They're still great. I'm almost going to be rooting for Syracuse as much as as I might not want to with them being in the ACC next year, but it's always going to be something that I'm looking forward to, and hopefully seeing enjoyment from Syracuse and seeing success. I do want to point out that I do whoop Griff and Adrian in golf every time we play. I still have yet to beat GMAC though, but they will not like to hear that, but they know it's the truth.
There ends all the good blood. The bad blood's out.
Yeah, I guess there is one thing that there's bad blood in, and that's golf. That's the only part.
Over the years, I've talked to you and your folks about some of the social media stuff out there from some fans.
Yep.
And I've always contended it's a very small minority.
Yeah.
But they're loud. and they can, and I'm sure it's aggravating, probably isn't the right word.
Mm-hmm.
But you've taken some guff.
Yeah.
Did that play any role in the decision to find another place for your fifth year?
No, not really. I mean, like you said, they're loud if you allow them to be loud, I guess, is my way of like thinking about it. And in the most polite way, I would think I would rather listen to Jim Boeheim, who's in the Hall of Fame, than the couch potato coach who's on Twitter. And I think if you look about it that way, it's it's pretty funny because a lot of these guys don't even play. Have never played basketball, and they kind of I don't want to get myself in trouble here, but they look at a guy who looks like me out on the basketball court, and they think that I guess I'm lesser of an athlete or I'm lesser of a basketball player just because I'm not as tall as everybody else. I don't have as much length as everybody else. I don't have the same speed. I'm a lot more athletic than a lot of people give me credit for, and I think people will be able to see that when I do play man-to-man defense. And I wouldn't be able to. I hate bragging about myself, but I wouldn't be able to score 1,600 points. I wouldn't be able to be top 8 in assists all time at Syracuse, top 3 in threes, top 2 in free throws. I wouldn't be able to do all this stuff if I couldn't play basketball. And that's why it kind of is just funny to me at this point for reading it, because I really think it got to a point where people saw, like, the bigger ones getting a lot of retweets and a lot of likes, and then people kind of get hungry for that. And it's just kind of the way that the social media world is nowadays. And athletes can be the same way in that they start having some good games, they want to post their highlights and all that kind of stuff, and they're hungry for more of that on social media. It's the same kind of way for these fans who are tweeting all that kind of stuff. They see someone else who's hating or making up these funny jokes or whatever about a player, that and they see them blowing up about it, they kind of want to chime in on it. So it kind of just grows in that way. But at some point you just kind of have to laugh it off, because um, it really is a joke at some points. And it seemed like no matter what someone could do, they're going to find a way to shoot it down at some point. So it didn't play much of a factor. I will say that it will be like a breath of fresh air almost to go somewhere new where, the fans are excited about you coming in and excited about you being able to play for their school and their team and represent them. So that part's exciting. But I the last few times that I've said thank you to Syracuse on social media has been nothing but warm welcomes from the rest of the people. So like you kind of said, it's a lot more of the good than it is the little of the bad.
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering, like, when you get down to Clemson, whenever you go, you're going this summer, or you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go June 1st for both summer sessions. Yep.
So real soon.
Yeah.
I can imagine you actually being able to take a walk across campus for a little while without anybody recognizing you. For a little.
Yeah. No, probably. I mean, you're probably right. And I couldn't do that here in Syracuse just from being from New York. But on Clemson's campus, you're probably right. And this is the basketball team's had great few years, and a bunch of years actually under Brownell. He's been there for a while, especially last year where they probably should have made the tournament, honestly. But you know, they have a bunch of sports there who are very good, and a lot of their sports teams, and that includes obviously the football is where they do, but the baseball team's good, the softball team's good, the you name it. They just started a lacrosse program a few years ago, so like all these teams are good, and they have a great tradition of sports as a whole. And I mean, I'm not attention seeking at all, so it doesn't really bother me if people don't recognize me, because even in Syracuse, sometimes I'll be walking through the mall and I look like the average Joe, no pun intended, but I'm just the same size as many of these other people who are walking through. And obviously like my girlfriend gets pissed because we'll be at dinner and the majority of the times people are coming up to you saying hi, and all that kind of stuff, but which is great. And that was a joke. She enjoys it, but it's like it gets to a point where sometimes you're in the middle of a bite and someone's coming up to you saying hi. But that could change, like you said, at Clemson a little bit for sure, which is a good thing the way you want to look at it. And it also
fresh air, like you said.
Yeah, right. And it also, I mean, I guess it makes you hungry because you want to go be that player. You want to be the great player. You want to bring a lot of attention not only to yourself but to your team. And the way that Clemson does things there in terms of not just basketball but sports as a whole, you don't want to be the lone team who's not having a good season. So you want to be good, and the way you get recognized is through winning and playing well.
I bet you when Clemson comes to the Carrier Dome and you're introduced, you're going to get quite a round of applause from the fans.
That would be awesome.
I really do.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's like you said too. It's not even necessarily the naysayers don't really come from the games. The people who are there in person, it's a lot of times just the people after the games on Twitter or whatever they may be on Instagram, whatever it is, trying to make a funny tweet or make a funny joke. So a lot of times the people in person are, the best ever. Syracuse does have a large fan base that's nationwide. No matter where you go in the country, you're going to see somebody who's a Syracuse fan. And that was what made it so fun playing there for 4 years as well, is because we'd have away games that turned into home games just because of the way the fans were. So that was always great, and still always will be great. And like I said, that's why going back there will be surreal for many things, but it'll also be exciting.
Well, it really will be. It would be a special night at the Dome next year, whenever that happens. Listen, Joe, I want to thank you again for coming on the podcast. Yeah. Obviously, this won't be the last time we talk. We're going to be following you next year down at Clemson.
Sure.
But it's always been really enjoyable. Anytime we had a chance to sit and talk a little bit. You're a bright young man, very thoughtful, a 3-time All-ACC academic team member, and it shows. Congratulations on your achievements.
Thank you very much, Mr. Waters. And as Coach Boeheim's always said multiple times, you were one of the few that was always enjoyable to talk to. So, but no, I really appreciate.
I don't know about that. You really might be misquoting Coach.
I really appreciate it, and you've been following me since high school, so thank you for everything. And my family and I really appreciate all you've done covering us for a while. So thank you.
Well, thanks again, Joe. Appreciate it. Good luck to you.